Ele é considerado um dos homens mais poderosos de Hollywood, Arnold Rifkin. Ele é o dono da Triad, uma agência que controla a carreira de grandes estrelas. Hoje em dia, no cinema, os agentes passaram a ser mais importantes do que as grandes estrelas. Assista a nossa entrevista e saiba por que, atrás de uma grande estrela, há sempre um grande agente. What is exactly the real power of an agent?
I like to believe that the power of the agent really lies within the client. The willingness to say no when you want to say yes, and the ability to say yes when you think you should say no. So truly my power ranges often with the clients I represent. The ability that I have, my intelligence and my ability to both perceive one's talent and to create, make something that wasn't there exist. That's what I do.
Let's explain to a Brazilian audience, what is the function of an agent?
In basic terms, an agent is someone who facilitates the employment of, in this case, we represent actors, actresses, directors,
Writers.
producers, writers, music people. We are the largest promoter of music in concerts or personal appearances. And I think the basic function that we have is to be the fulcrum or the facilitator for seeking employment. A more important step, I believe, because anybody can take a phone call and say, I want Patrick Swayze, I want Melanie Griffith, I want Bruce Willis. What's really important is to come up with an idea that somebody wouldn't necessarily think of, okay, off the top of their head. And I think that's really what an agent is responsible for. There's an innovativeness.
But why have the agents become so powerful?
And now we're making an assumption that the agents are that powerful.
Oh, sure they are.
No.
And the most powerful people is the agents come first. Even for, even with the star, if you
It's very difficult, though, to make a movie if you don't have somebody to star in it. So I like to believe that our power, if that's true, that an agent has power, I'd like to think that that power is preceded, however, by what's the desire of the client or what's the desire of the production company or the people who are financing the movie. I'm not going to take the position that maybe some take, that we are omniscient or we are all-knowing. I don't like to pretend or be in that. That's of no interest to me. I like to think that what I do for a living is put things together that make sense, and if they don't make sense, then don't put them together. At the end of the day, I like to look at what I've done and feel good about it.
I know, but in old Hollywood, how did it used to be? The agents were not so powerful.
I'm not that old. I don't know.
Yeah, but you know the story. I'm sure you.
I think maybe what has changed is that the studios are very preoccupied with box office, and I think with the pressure of delivering each time you go out, and the escalation of costs for making a movie, for financing the prints and ads, the P&A, which is after you're done with a movie and then you're going to promote it to the public. I think the cost of television and promoting it, the cost of making a TV series today, I think all those things factor into the studios want guarantees that when they make their decision, they're right up front. And I think that puts an added amount of pressure on all of those that are involved from that point on. The power you refer to, I think, lies much more within the actor or the actress, the director, or the material. And I think when you have a proven commodity, be it a writer or a director or an actor or actress, I think there's a certain assurance on the studio side that regardless of how it all turns out, because nobody can control that until you're finished, that at least going into it, they have provided all the ingredients that might make a hit.
You agree that an agent is so important as a star?
I think an agent's really important to a star. I don't know that I would say they're as important as a star. I mean, I don't get paid the same as a star, so that would necessarily reflect that I must not be that important. When I walk into a studio, if I ask for what I ask for my clients, I don't think they pay me. Right? So that must mean something.
But doesn't an agent have power to destroy a star's career?
I wouldn't like to think that I have that power. I think that's in the hands of the actor much more than the agent. No. I mean, if somebody does.
Is there any agent who has this power?
I wouldn't, I don't know. Is there? You've done the research here, yeah, I know. You know what? I don't know the answer to that. And I really don't want to believe that that's possible.
Where does a project usually begin?
Here, often, at a dinner table, in a staff room.
But I mean in the agency or in the studios?
Very often within the agency, very often. We'll sit in a room 5, 6 times a week. I will gather my talent people who represent the actors and actresses, and I will gather the literary people who represent the writers and the producers and directors. We will look at both from a development standpoint, ideas that they've come up with, that they've pitched us for talent, or we'll look at properties on, they're called spec screenplays. We were one of the first to come up with a formula for selling spec screenplays. Spec means speculation. It means you go away and you write a screenplay with nobody commissioning you to write it or nobody asking you to write it. And then after months or weeks or however good you are at writing, you come up with it, you give it to us, we give you our opinion, and either we decide we're going to go with it now, meaning present it to the studios or whoever, or you go back and do more work on it until it has what we determined to be the readiness. And we were one of the first people who
judged this?
We do. Staff, literary agents, who do this every day. Just like your technicians judge if we're ready to do this interview because the lighting is correct and because the sound is good. We are the technicians of things like that. We also live in the marketplace. So when we go to the studios and when we solicit our clients, we have a very tangible feeling, a very succinct impression of what's in the marketplace, what will sell, what won't. We are a business that is based a lot upon impression. So when one weekend a horror movie and a comedy are the biggest box office, Monday morning we begin to find projects that reflect horror and comedy. And if next weekend you have a romantic, warm story about 2 people who fall in love, then we're on the hunt for that, if that should work.
So you follow a tendency, a market tendency?
Often, unfortunately, or fortunately, we often are led to seek out based upon what was the populace response to something. You know, it's cyclical. I mean, action films, I believe, will always be there. The basic fundamental of what it is that we do as an industry is to supply to the community and the world entertainment. Because all those days that we spend struggling, we like to forget. And to me, the movie theater is a place where we can shed our fears, our concerns, our worries, and it's a safe place for 2 hours or an hour and a half.
But is there innovation? Do you feel innovation in the market?
I think that's subjective. I mean, when you watch films that create animation and live action at the same time, it's pretty fascinating when you see someone talking to a cartoon, you know. Is there innovation? I think every story is derivative of something that happened a long time ago. I mean, you wear jackets that are one color one day and then you wear a different style jacket, but it's still a jacket and it's a different color. It was derived from something long ago. I think we all deal with things that a desk is a desk, you know, some things you can't change.
And what exactly does packaging mean?
Let me use a metaphor to make it easy. Packaging, the difference between buying a suit of clothing or a dress, packaging is, could be perceived as the dress, the pearls, the shoes, and all the other accoutrements that go to make it a complete outfit. When we package, and it's a word that's much abused, depending upon who uses it, sometimes it's only one or two elements that are necessary to go forward. Sometimes it needs all the elements. But the concept, I believe, it begins with a piece of material. And often you'll take a piece of material and you'll introduce it to a client, either a director or a producer or an actor, actress, and they'll respond to it. And with just that kind of response, you could go to a studio or an independent financer and say, what if I brought you an action movie with, yeah, I mean, that's
maybe this is the power.
To some extent. I'd like to think power maybe not be necessarily what it is, as opposed to creativity and insight, perception about what is to come. I think the idea of just being creative, seeing an opportunity, and realizing, not being afraid of it. I can cite one example, if I may. Most actors will be concerned about doing a commercial, because why pay to see somebody on a movie screen if you see them for 60 seconds, 5 times a day? Many years ago, a client of mine and I were approached on a concept, and we were able to manipulate the concept to where we had a lot of control over it, and we agreed to do it. The commercial was for Seagram's wine cooler. It was a new product that had been introduced by another brewery, and it was a very competitive marketplace, and it was one of the first times truly that they were seeking an actor to promote it. The client was Bruce Willis, and the concept that they came to us was very different when we got done doing it. And because of Bruce's power, his impact, his effect on the consumer, Seagram's went from number 5 in the marketplace to number 1 within 9 months. Now, I like to think...
And it doesn't affect his market?
No, that's why I raised it. It has not. You know, an agent's like a therapist. I don't know if we've used that metaphor yet, but an agent is. An agent has to know timing. Timing is crucial to the responsibility of communicating with somebody else. When you have good news, anybody can tell it. You can leave a message on a machine and good news travels. Bad news, you don't give on a machine. And often bad news you don't give on a phone. Bad news, you look somebody in the eye and say, this is going to hurt, okay? But it ain't going to matter, because ultimately we'll win. I mean...
and you've done that?
I know the difference, yeah. I don't like to inflict pain. I don't get off on that. I don't like giving bad news either. But I tell you what, when you present something, present it with the same confidence that you present good news. Do the same thing with bad news. Present it with a confidence that this is only an obstacle.
And why do clients change agencies?
You ask dangerous questions. Why do I think they change? Nobody wants to take responsibility when it's not working. Do you ever think about when a client will go out on 50 interviews and not get one? That's tough. That's hard to deal with. 50 different people saying no to you, all in the 2 months. That's hurtful. How do you go home at night and say, God, I feel good about today? Well, some of the ways to eliminate that kind of pain is to say, maybe if I change my agent, maybe I should change my style of clothing. Maybe I should change my accountant. Maybe I should change my publicist. We're pretty much the first to go because we're on the line. We affect the living, remember that. We're about one's living. So when you go home at night and it's Christmas, time and you don't have enough money to buy all the gifts you want to buy, that's painful. That hurts. I got to believe that affects one's decision-making process. That's a very vulnerable time of the year, by the way. I bet you in Brazil, too.
Sure.
People realize what they have and don't have. Who created Christmas? Anyway. Some would think that.
Yeah.
Some might think that. But we're also tenacious, aggressive, and have a very thick skin. You see, one client takes 50 no's. That's one client. So if you have 1,000 clients, that's a lot of no's. You know, and that's a lot of yeses to go get.
And what is your image of an ideal agent?
To be arrogant, I'd probably say me. I mean, I don't know how else to answer that. I'd like to think that I practice what I believe.
Are you an ideal agent, do you think you are?
Certainly for the people I represent, I am.
Mm. And what is the ideal client?
The ideal client? Someone who listens. But that's arrogant again on my part, because that's to presume that what I have to say is correct. I like someone who, I appreciate when a client wants to be involved, wants to know, wants to learn from why this and not that, and be open. I think it's a very collaborative relationship, and I think going back to your first question, what makes it unique here is that I don't make the lobby uncomfortable to sit in so that people won't come. I like when the clients come. I feel each time we exchange something, that's a little better insight into how we're going to succeed eventually. I like the fact that clients care about what it is they're going to do. And I just think it's important when a client appreciates the care that goes into a decision and not just assume or suggest that it's about money or about, I've struggled in my life, I know what it's like to not have. It's okay, I can make that, I can deal with that as well as I can deal with having.
You deal with sensitivities.
Right.
So it's a little bit harder, isn't it?
You deal with people's livings. You deal with, you know, I learned very early on the hardest transaction when you make with the public, okay, is when a consumer leaves the store. They love the buying, they hate the paying for. You know, they hate to go in their pocket and give to the cash register what they just worked all week for. I think that you have to remember too that when a person goes to a movie theater and pays, I don't know how much it is in Brazil, and I don't know how it relates in Brazil.
How much is it here?
Here it's $7.50. I haven't paid in a long time. I don't know. I think it's $7.50. I shouldn't say that.
You don't pay more.
No, I should. You want to feel like there was an exchange. It's very important. It's nice to sense that the audience appreciates. I just think that we should not lose sight of the fact that yes, we're in a business. Yes, this is about profit, but it's about giving something too. You know, it's amazing when people become famous. One of the great ways that they can take that success and give back is by doing things that influence older people, younger people, middle-aged people.
What careers have you helped to build?
What careers have I helped to build? To build. What about the ones I leave out? I'm in trouble. Many. It's difficult to isolate. To say that I've been in the lives of a Patrick Swayze, Bruce Willis, a Melanie Griffith, a Danny Glover, people I don't know that Brazil is aware of or not, I'm not sure. I like to think they are.
Yes, they are. What do you look for when you get involved in a project? You just the box office or the artistic results?
I think it's very difficult to predict box office. I mean, certainly some projects are easier because they're obvious if it's an action movie and you know. But we call those no-brainers. I mean, you don't have to have a degree in anything to necessarily read and know how to blow up a building, and I don't say that in a negative way. Mm-hmm. What do you look for? You like to think that you can vary the roles that a client's going to do and give them a stretch. Let the audience know that there's another side, okay? Everybody has more than one side. There's another side to you, I'm sure, when those these lights aren't on. I mean, it's nice to think that one can access all sides of a talent. It gives them an opportunity. That's why I believe that a lot of our clients do theater. They'll go to New York and they'll spend 6 months, 8 months on a play, or we will do a very special project on television if it's and then you've got people who are on series who will do a special project on TV to show the difference between a half-hour sitcom, a situation comedy, and someone playing 2-hour who's been faced with being accused of rape. Mm-hmm. I mean, the idea of just stretching your muscles.
When you have two actors who are right for the same role, how did you decide which one to push?
We don't. They both go in.
Who decides?
The director, the studio, maybe sometimes the co-star, they have approval. Very few stars have that kind of approval, but very often. But I think a director is going to be the person who is ultimately going to make that decision. They're going to live with that person. It's their vision, it's their dream. In making a movie, one has to believe that the director has a vision as to how he sees it.
But how do you deal with the sense of competition between your clients?
Aggressively. You deal with anything that's competitive with an aggressiveness. To suggest
jealousies, between your jealousies between
I don't think that the jealousies exist between the clients within the agency. If there's any jealousy, that's their own personal situations within themselves. Our responsibility is to make sure that a director sees whoever we believe, okay, or whoever is right, from both an obvious point of view or a non-obvious. The getting of the job, although maybe some people say this, I don't know, is really up to the actor ultimately. The opportunity to go get the job is our responsibility. The fact that we will call the studio head, that we'll call a director, that we'll call a producer, and say, I think you've made a mistake in not meeting with Bruna. Mm-hmm. I think you should see her.
And how do you deal with the big egos?
Of who?
People.
Studios?
Stars. Directors.
I think you just move forward. I'd like to think that what I do is I set a goal, okay? I set a path. I see the path, and then I move towards the path. There's always going to be obstacles in the path, okay? If you recognize that they are obstacles and that's all, then obstacles are only problems, and problems have solutions. Egos are only a problem of somebody else. I just have to find the solution to one's ego.
But do you have, are there clients, of course, more interested than others?
More interesting?
Yeah, for you.
In what way?
I don't know.
I don't deal with all the clients in my agency. I have 265 employees total. There's about 95 agents. That's a lot of clients. So I'm more responsible to my people who work for us. In the way that I do my job, I'm a problem solver very often. For every employee, I believe there's 50 different sets of problems. So with the number of people that we have, that's a lot of problems. And there are people that I have grandfathered in terms of actors and actresses and directors, and I'm on the line with them, but that's really not my function. And every day is different. I wouldn't exist in a community or in a job where I knew what I was going to experience on Friday. Today's Thursday. I want to know that tomorrow is going to be different than today. I like that idea.
Do you like the unknown?
I like the fact that you can be doing more than 3 things at once, and that someone else is taking care of 6 other, and you can be advised as to what's the update and status, and in a split second you make a decision to call somebody, and it's all about timing. Very often it's on an airplane ride where you come up with an idea, and sitting next to you is, I sold a movie literally and closed a deal on a ride from here to Toronto on a movie that was not going to get made. Timing.
Have you had to fight with any of your clients?
Maybe the question is, have you never had a fight with a client?
Because it's
Sure, you always have. I'd like to think that any communication that works is going to have a certain element of tension to it and a certain amount of disagreement. I think fight may be the inappropriate word. We've argued, we've disagreed, we've even dissented, but I don't know that we have fought. There's a certain level of permissiveness that you can come to, and then beyond that, anger never works. Being right never works either.
But why actors complain so much about agents?
Why do agents complain about actors?
Oh.
I don't know. Let me ask you a question. If you wanted something and you couldn't have it, and you felt that you were entitled to it, and somebody else was responsible for not getting it for you, what would you do? Would you complain?
Maybe I blame myself.
But if you're not going to blame yourself, who are you going to blame?
Oh, that's my way to deal with
Then you'd be an ideal
problems.
client.
Yeah. And have you ever felt betrayed by a client, or by a client leaving you, for instance?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure, it's painful.
How do you feel? Painful?
Angry.
Angry?
Tearful. I have spent many times, when I first started, I was much younger. And the company I started had 2 people in it, and I was anonymous, so why would you come with me? And as I grew in the business, I had people who were ascending, and larger agencies would see the ascension and decide that this is the time to go get them. At the time, I didn't have the ability to prevent that. I didn't even have the awareness. And when a client says, you've done a great job, it's, again, a metaphor might be when you build a house and you have somebody decorate it, but you're not allowed to live in it. I don't like that. That makes me, hurts. It's, but one has to understand that that's part of the process. And it was my desire very early to have a large agency for that very reason. I started many people who were not necessarily all with me today. I'd like to think that the attrition in my life has been very little. The people who have left has not been a lot. I'm very good. But you are going to have what I call casualties in your life. Sure. And that's painful.
You said that you have a personal relationship with your clients. Can you really mix friendship with this business?
With some people, yes. When that's a determination you make as the relationship grows. It's not, we're going to be good friends as well as client and agent. Organically, that happens. When you get a sense that the client appreciates your lifestyle. I spend a great deal of time with my family. I am not social, which is somewhat, I'm looking for the word that would be appropriate. Many people who do what I do for a living find that being social is advantageous and in some cases necessary. I don't. I don't believe that what I do in the evening is going to necessarily impact the success that I have during the hours that I work. Now, I work many hours, so often I'll be into the evening, but I don't believe that's a requirement. So when clients appreciate that I need that time with my family, that makes me feel a little bit kinder towards them, or a little more personal with them. And when I can do things with them, with our families jointly, where business doesn't arise necessarily, I think they get an insight into me and why I'm so good at what it is I do, because that's their perspective which keeps me whole. That's the side of my life that's kept me out of trouble.
And do you work only with established artists,
No.
or do you look for new ones?
I love to start. I don't have the luxury of doing it like I used to, because when I used to, it was the only thing I could get. But I will often want to get involved with someone who's on the ascend. There's a certain kind of, you know, you can get the financial rewards in success as clients grow and you grow, and people come to expect a certain response from you when they want to know what you want, and you can sort of enjoy the fact that you know you're going to get it. But when you have somebody new, you tap into what you used to have again and see if it's still there and see if you're right. So there's a certain kind of intrinsic thrill, a certain kind of getting off when you meet somebody that you think can go the distance.
Is there any special technique of discovering a new talent?
No, it's just a feel. You watch somebody on a piece of film, or you see somebody, often you can tell by somebody's eyes just how hungry they are and just how willing they are to go the distance.
And how do you see the potential? Where do you look for new talents? Do they come to you?
Often, the people who think they're new talents come to us, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you find it anywhere that you...
Do you go to small theaters, or do you still go to, or someone in your agency?
Oh, absolutely. We have comedy divisions, we have theater divisions where we create within the agency a staff of young people who go to... I couldn't go to those clubs anymore. I wouldn't fit in anymore. I've passed those days. The most essential element that I need to fulfill the passion I have is the willingness to grow and change. I love change. I'll move my office often just because I want to change what I'm looking at. You need that. You need to think and feel differently after a while about something. And as people grow and ascend, you get to perceive things differently and see them. You know, I'm in a business where I always get to make the party, but I never go to the party. That's something else you have to understand. We help make the movies.
The challenge is very important to you. You don't care just about the money or the...
The money comes. I mean, if I spend my time worrying about the money, then
I spend all my money.
And if it ain't working, I'll know it because the money won't be there. So there's not I don't have to wonder, will it happen or not? Or do I have the money? If it ain't there, I'll know. You know what I mean? If it's happening, that'll be there.
Yeah, I understand. But you're a different agent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're different. I don't know.
I am.
Yeah?
I am. I've always done it differently.
Oh, good.
I like to think that.
And, but how much money per year moves through the film industry?
I know that, you know, it's billions of dollars to spend in the movie industry, both box office and, I mean, you know, on an average weekend, 50 million, 60 million at a box office throughout the country. So multiply that, 52 weekends. And then you got production. You have to figure that any studio budget, let's say if they're going to make 10, 12, 13 films a year, they set aside 150 million or 200 million, and then there's prints and ads. And it's an amount of money that there's infinity to it.
And what percentage of it goes to the agencies?
We are licensed by the state. We are licensed by, my agency earns 10% commission on all things that we...
Mm-hmm. And there is a recession in the United States. How has it affected your business?
To the extent that the ability of the consumer to consume entertainment, it's affected us. I think when you have something good, though, that makes people feel, laugh, cry, or get them excited, I think they'll go, and I think they'll just be more judicious with how they spend their dollar. But I do think it's affected us on the production side. There's less of a willingness. I think there has to be a revisit on all aspects of spending, but I think we're essential to the community at large. We are a provider of the one thing that ultimately people can seek to forget, and we are always going to need that.
The Japanese have bought major studios. How far does their control go?
How far does their control go? They're owners. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that. I would like to, again, believe that when I deal with companies that have Japanese ownership behind it, I'm still dealing with the people that were the provocators of their buying whatever they bought. I'm still dealing with the creators of the institute or the institution that has the value. Mm-hmm. I've not felt the effect of that opinion.
How important is it for you to be at the top?
Top of what?
The market.
How important is it for me to be, you mean not personally, but my company to be? Mm-hmm. It's important because it's my living. It's important because I care. Being number one or number two, that's different. I mean, there's lots of room at the top. How important is it to leave this earth saying, I wished I had? That's something I never want to, I want to prevent. If I had only, or if I would have. I don't want to leave this, I'd like a signature when I leave. You know, I'd like to think I did something. But to the extent that I would sacrifice the things that are important to me, and then think about if I had only, I don't want to do that. I don't want to miss those things.
Because you were a winner.
No.
Have you ever thought of giving up?
How many times? Sure. Giving up this, you mean? Giving up the agency business or giving up life?
No, not that. Life?
No,
not
not
business.
life for sure. Business? Only because I'm missing the things that I'd like to do. I was asked last evening if I'd like to leave today, take my family and go someplace. It was a terrific offer. I called my wife just to let her know what we're not going to do this weekend because we can't. Yeah, I'd love to be able to just on the spur of the moment say, yeah, let's do that. Is that reality? No, I'm much too pragmatic to think about giving it up. Not yet.
And do you have ambition that you haven't fulfilled?
I have ambitions that I haven't fulfilled. Absolutely. I don't know what they are, but I must. I keep doing this. I must have some. There's a drive in there that I know there are feelings that I want to feel that I haven't felt yet. Yes. And they must be connected to some kind of ambition that I've not recognized yet.
How do you spend your day?
That's the joy of it. I know I get up very early. I rise at 5. I exercise. I read. I do whatever work I need to do. I have breakfast with my children. I take them to school and I come to work. And from then on in, it's a free-for-all. Other than the fact that I commit to certain things during the course of a day, I like to keep a very open schedule. I like to think that other than my lunches and staff meetings, I'm available to go to a set if I feel like it, visit a client, decide to sit down and come up with a plan for something, take a new client that we've just signed and learn something. There is no routine. Be available. Just be available. Be available for looking out.
Okay. So thank you very much for
being
available for us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I'm delighted. Am I attached to this chair?
You're wired.
I am? Oh, that was very nice. Thank you.